Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us. My name's Andrew from American Musical Supply. You can check us out online at americanmusical.com, and I'm really happy today to be joined by Mr. Clay Cook of the Zac Brown Band fame. He's also been a member of the Lo-Fi Masters with John Mayer, as well as the Marshall Tucker Band. So Clay, thanks so much for joining me today. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Andrew.
It's our pleasure. So, we understand that you recently got your hands on a set of the Universal Audio UAFX pedals, and wanted to just get your first impressions of these pedals, and maybe just a little bit of a history about like how you've utilized this kind of equipment in the past and how you plan to maybe utilize these pedals in your rig. So
Well,
what are you
yes.
thinking in terms of these pedals?
Well, they're basically made for me as a guitar player because I grew up with a lot of this gear. I've utilized these specific pieces of gear that they're modeling. And, there was a period of time where Line 6 was doing sort of the same thing where they had modeled. Um, there was a delay modeler and a modulation modeler. And then I forgot, there was also a distortion modeler as well. There was also a filter modeler. And I love the idea. I felt like technology was not on pace with matching up with the real stuff at the time. This stuff that UA is making sounds almost exactly like my stuff without all the problems. There's no buzzing. There's no constant maintenance. I mean, if I had, if I had a nickel for every time I've had to put my Echoplex in the shop, I'd probably have 50 cents. But it's what they're doing is great for me because I'm familiar with this gear. There are other pedal companies that do kind of the same thing there, where they're modeling or it's completely digital, and you could probably get these sounds, but it would take you a while to get to it. I mean, of altering the sound and tweaking the knobs and everything. But when you pull up the Spring 65 on the Golden Reverberator, it sounds like what my 3-knob reverb. I don't have it right here. It's about way back there. But my Brown reverb, that's what it sounds like to me. And diving into this was huge for me because I was, after the Line 6 idea of pedals, I was like, no, I'm good. I'm just going to stick to my real stuff and do the extra work. We made a record about a year ago. It came out a few months ago, and I was constantly between songs or between parts having to repatch stuff because I didn't want everything in line because of the noise, and so primarily for like chicken picking guitar, I have a compressor and a tape slap. It's kind of pretty much the thing. But if I wanted to add some reverb to it, the amp was downstairs. So it's best to have the reverb with me. And so to put a reverb in line, I have to do that. And then all of a sudden it's squealing. And then it's all sorts of things. This cleans up everything for me. And I just absolutely love the idea that you can have one pedal on the pedal board and you can alternate in between the different types of delay. So otherwise I'd have to have the tape slap. And then I also have my old Boss DM2. And, that's 2 types of delay already. And then there's the idea of the Cooper Time Cube, because I'm a huge fan of what UA does. And the fact that now I have it on my pedal board. And we've never even had anyone emulate Cooper Time Cube for a pedal. So now it's just so much faster, and the audio quality is off the charts in comparison to, if I was trying to have, some old digital format trying to emulate these old analog things. And if I had a real Cooper Time Cube in front of my amplifier, I'm sure there'd be a weird impedance mismatch or something like that that wouldn't be, what my amp wants to see. So I absolutely love. That's just the Starlight Echo. When you go in the Golden Reverberator, it's the different models there. Their plate sounds phenomenal. I guess it's a emulation off of the old 140 plate. I've not really gotten into the extra sounds with the Golden Reverberator, which I believe is the 224, probably their plate in their chamber. But the Hall 224 is awesome for just adding a little depth and ambience straight into your amp, and that's the way I think most guitar players are going to use pedals. Now you could use them after the fact, as an insert, somewhere if you're recording and stuff like that. But man, and the fact that you can add extra sounds as they generate new sounds down the line, which is what the Cooper Time Cube, the thing doesn't come with it. So you have to like register the pedal and then download the new emulation, which is, what a great idea, because you're not fixed on what the thing comes with. So there's a constant evolving. I'm sure we'll see a new emulation after NAMM. There's probably a good chance. I don't know the answer to that. But also the modulation is, what do they call that? The modulation pedal is the Astra?
Astra, yeah. Yeah, the Astra Modulation Machine.
How many times have we plugged in chorus pedals and I don't know if you've ever used, I don't have mine right here. I should have had all this next to me. The old Roland CE1. And there's just something just beautiful about that. Even in mono, it has this like vocal quality that it adds. And then any other chorus pedal I've ever plugged in just sounds like chorus. But this has this like open sound to it, which the CE1 is the only time that, and I believe the same circuits in a Roland Jazz chorus, but that they nail it on this chorus brigade type of setting on that. And who wouldn't want the Fender tremolo? And you've got it all right there. And I don't understand, like these should be standard on people's pedal boards now. And I'm sure they will be as we move on, because the Line 6 eventually did become, you saw one of those green Line 6s on everybody's pedal board for, I don't know how many years, 15 years or something like that. It's probably been 20 since those things came out.
Yeah, I think it's been like 20 years, or at least since the DL2 came out. But
yeah.
Wow.
But I didn't know
have
if
you had a chance to run them in stereo yet?
Yeah. So I have. I've not just from the modulation standpoint. I don't have a real good stereo amp thing. So it's two different amps for me right now. To do true stereo, we're talking equidistant apart, same type of amp, same sound. But man, it just swirling around me. I'm not a huge flanger fan. That's just a personal preference. But I turned on the flanger and it was like the room got bigger somehow, and I didn't mess with the doubler at all, but the phaser and the Dharma trim's cool. I'm just a Fender tremolo guy, Fender reverb guy. Like it's all very simple to me, but I've never had anything that like geeked me out that wasn't the actual thing. That makes any sense. Like I absolutely love my deluxe reverb. It's got the Fender reverb in it, and it's got Fender tremolo in it, and it's awesome. And I've never felt like anyone's nailed it. And these guys have nailed it. I can run it in front of, I've got an old Trainwreck amp, which is like an AC30. And it does not have reverb. It does not have tremolo or anything like that. So when I go into the studio to play, I have to lean heavily on these pedals. And I've not put this in motion yet, but when we go back in the studio, I'm so excited to bring this board that I'm still working on. I'm still figuring out where I want things to go in the chain, but I am super stoked. They've done an amazing job of putting this together.
Awesome. So it seems like this is really enabling you to get your sound these pedals are enabling you to get your sound very quickly, with a minimum of fuss, and kind of have it be portable too, which is something I guess we all want, right? Because you had mentioned a little bit before about how you had originally had like a Bradshaw system and things like, does this simplify you achieving your tone, having these pedals?
Yeah. So I used to just bring a box full of pedals to the studio, and I would have a tuner and a compressor on the pedal board, and then a way to power everything when I put it in line. But man, when producers like, all right, cool, can you give me just a little, can you put a little slap on it, or can you put a little, instead of me pulling out the Echoplex and plugging it in and plugging things in and getting the right level, I mean, now I just have to step on a pedal, and I'm as happy. I'm certain I'll be as happy because I haven't put it in in actual live practice yet, but I'm as happy as dropping that Echoplex on the ground and, plugging everything, like running through all these motions. And instead of wasting 5 minutes to get a sound or adding to the sound, and then the producer's like, no, take it off. And then you turn it off and it sounds different. And then you got to unplug it. And then, I mean, it's allowing me to use the equipment that I've become familiar with and lean heavily on in an instant. And then the modifiers on it are great. The EQs, you can't EQ an EP3, like a Echoplex. You can't EQ it right there. You have to put an EQ after it. I mean, it's just, I think they've thought of everything. It's awesome.
You had mentioned something before about the user interface and about how, essentially how like other pieces of gear you could conceivably achieve the same sounds, but it would take a lot of tweaking, and you have to dive through menus and things. What do you think about the simpler user interface of and kind of more, I guess, analog feel that these pedals have?
Well, I mean, I come from that world, and of everything being a tweakable parameter, and then also being simple. So, getting into the lexicon units and the big racks and stuff like that takes a learning curve and all sorts of stuff that I've learned in my 20s, and huge deep dives, really slow. I mean, and this stuff is so easy. And between tap tempo, and I mean, tap tempo has been there for a while. We've all had that on all sorts of rack units and stuff like that. But I feel like you could dial a lot of this. You can dial anything you want in. It's crazy. I could definitely give some suggestions for maybe one or two more things, but everything that they've modeled here is completely usable. And I mean, the one or two things that I'm talking about is just silly stuff that I love, and
So it seems that the speed and the convenience is really, how much does that matter to you, like when you're in the studio and you're kind of working off inspiration and things, like how important is that to have something that's fast and convenient to be able to get a sound?
I didn't know it was that important until this past record. We worked with a Nashville producer, Ben Simonetti, and he's used to working extremely fast. He's kind of from this new wave of producers who have come up as engineers as well, and they work really, really fast, and not everything's on a click, but there's not a lot of trying to organically find something in a take. He's working with guys who are first call guys constantly, and they basically do 3 takes, and that's it. And so on that first take, you better be like 90% there with your sound, because if they do use it, then it's got to be something representative of what the song will eventually be. And being fast I didn't realize how unbelievably important it is to creativity sometimes. I do love the midnight sessions that go on for hours and hours, and you're just trying to like find something. You can't do that on every song, you know, searching and experimentation and that sort of thing. This actually makes that faster, you know, being able to dial up all of these different modulations and different types of ambiances and delays. It just simply makes it faster. And also I'm in a band with 7 other guys. So there's not a ton of audio space, if that makes any sense. Like, it's not one guitar like Eddie Van Halen. There's usually 2 to 3 guitar parts going on, and a banjo or acoustic guitar and a fiddle and a keyboard. And so you have to be pretty sure that it's going to fit in that spot. And I mean, as a band, we've been pretty good at learning each other and knowing what each other needs to do. And like I'll listen to what everybody else is playing and going, I need to do this. And it usually sounds like us. Like, you know, that's the way it works when you've been in a band. I think I'm on year 13 now with these guys. So we know each other very, very well. We've never gotten rid of anyone. We've only added people. It's crazy. Just keep adding people into the band. And so being quick, but then also having the audio quality that I hear in my head and what I'm comfortable with. It's almost like these guys made these pedals for me and me only. Like, I feel that in my heart, and I want to send them like a box of chocolates or something like that.
That's so great. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense because the you know, the years that you've been active in the music industry, it's all the changes that have taken place in, I mean, we could that's a whole other conversation on how people consume music, but even just in the recording process and going from more analog centric gear and having experience with that in your early formative years, like through to now where things are different, I can definitely see how these pedals would, you know, they kind of bridge that gap.
Yeah, there was a long period of time where digital just couldn't emulate what we were trying to do, Bucket Brigade or actual tape, or, I mean, if you, I'm sure there's a list somewhere. I couldn't find it on their website, but like a concise list of what they're kind of emulating here. If you tried to put all that in a suitcase, you couldn't do it. And now we're putting it into 3 pedals this big. That size, speed, the emulation quality, like I said, like we've just never been there. Like there's been a couple EP3 Echoplex tape slap emulations that I like in pedals, but this sounds like my EP3.
Yeah, and the I guess the breadth of EP3 tones you can get out of it, like with the 3 machines being modeled, and
Right.
you know, you can go from all clean to all the way dirty, and then you get the tape loop emulation, like where the tape loop starts again. It's pretty
And it's the right
incredible.
type of saturation too.
Right.
Like it's not just like, oh yeah, just put some little fuzzy on top and then everybody will be happy. There was a long time where plugins were like that, and now I feel like they've been leading the way with plugins in nailing some of these analog ideas, analog, preamps, delays, and then their reverbs are just ungodly in their plugins. And so to have some of these 224 emulations alongside the spring reverb, I would love them to make that spring reverb a plugin, actually, because I'm not real happy with a lot of the spring reverbs that are out there in plugin form. But this emulation on the pedal is out of this world.
That's cool. Now, are these things that you also want to incorporate into your live rig, or you're really kind of more interested in using them for studio, or because your live rig's a little different, right? Like you typically use like a more digital based system for that. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I've actually moved into fractal world. I'm using a complete modeling. I'm not even using speakers on stage. I honestly, it came from using the UA pedal. I mean, sorry, the UA plugins, and I'm like, man, if they can sound like this, then there's got to be somebody out there who can do this sort of thing. Because I would have all sorts of troubles with my rig, no matter how we tried to bolster it. I've got the best tech in the world, and he, you know, we there are just nights where you're on a beach and the speaker sounds damp because it is. And then there's nights where it sounds like $1 billion. I'm like, write everything down. We got to do this again. And then we try to do it the next night and it's not the same, you know. But I I I would imagine. See, I'm not having to tweak stuff live, so I just start playing the song and the telly patch is up there, and it sounds. And I've spent hours and hours modifying. I don't know. I'm only using like 5 sounds on stage, and every now and then I'll kick on what I call, like a pedal, and it'll just modify that sound. But if I was ever to incorporate anything external, it would probably be these pedals, because I feel like the amp sound is correct now, and these emulations just sound great.
Cool. Now you also mentioned plugins, and I know we were just talking really briefly before we started this interview off, where you mentioned the Fender 55 plugin,
Mhm.
and can you tell us a little bit about your impressions of that?
Yeah, I mean, I first saw it and I'm like, oh, that looks cool. It looks like my deluxe. So I bought it and I opened it up. I'm like, okay, what's this going to sound like? And man, being able to modify the mics and the angle of the mics and blending 2 mics together and jumping the channels, that thing is so usable. And when I usually lay down ideas, that I just pull that up and plug my guitar in. And I had, for years, I had a studio in Atlanta, and tons of gear, tons and tons of analog gear. And now I'm down to just a couple of these UA 8Ps, and then some satellites, just for more processing power. And it used to be a whole rack worth of gear just to convert the signal going through a board and all that. And now it's, I'm basically just I'm doing overdubs here. I'm not really recording a full band at the same time at my house, but I do a ton of overdubs. I've got a Hammond to my right over here and a Wurlitzer on my left. And then a lot of times I'm just recording through that Fender Deluxe. When I'm not recording live guitar amplifier, I'll just plug into that and then maybe put a modifier like a pedal in front of it, and doing overdubs for people just, every week. And that, and then the playing bass into their Ampeg flip top. It's just, these guys have thought of everything. And it's funny because every time they release a new plugin or whatever, I'm like, oh yeah, like I thought you guys already thought of everything. And then they, release, the, I guess it was the AMS delay. And I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. I mean, everybody had one of those. And I don't know, their R&D / idea department's off the charts.
Clay, thanks so much for telling us, about all this gear. It definitely seems like UA saves you a lot of time and inspires a lot of creativity. Their products inspire a lot of creativity in the studio. And you mentioned you've been doing a lot of overdubs recently. How have you been doing during this time? Such an unusual time for us, and I know, like, probably so much of your life is spent out on the road, and hasn't really been practical the last little while to do that. So how have you been coping, and what are there any challenges you've been faced with, or things, new ways of having to look at things?
Yeah, well, I'm kind of a huge silver lining guy. So, I mean, I don't think what has been happening as far as COVID and all that, I don't think it's good by any means. Um, but I try to look on the bright side. My wife and I had another baby in September of 2020. So
Congratulations.
we basically spent, thank you. We spent basically the first year either being pregnant or having a baby, a newborn, and man, she's almost 1.5 at this point. And so that has been great. I've been home for that to transition from 2 to 3 kids, which has been a lot. And I normally wouldn't have been, you know. That's bright side. Secondly, I about a year ago, I jumped into the pool with Berkeley Online and I started teaching there because I had nights, all sorts of nights off. And then people started sending me tracks because everybody was kind of doing remote. People are still out there creating, and so people would send me stereo tracks and be like, hey, throw some guitars on this. Hey, what do you hear here? Throw something on it. I'd play dobro, I'd play acoustic guitar, mandolin. I did a lot of Hammond work, not a lot of like rock and roll Hammond guys, out there. And so I did get a lot of Hammond work at the beginning for sure. Now that studios are open back, it's really interesting to have a Hammond at your house to be able to just record that. Not a lot of people have. Lots of studios have Hammonds, but I get a pretty good sound here. And using UA, the Neve preamp on the way in on the Unison, it's a beautiful thing. But I've been working like that. We did a little tour, 3 months, maybe in the fall, towards the, actually kind of right in the middle of Delta was blowing up in the South. We were all up in the Northeast and the Midwest. And, we're looking forward to, we had a new record come out in October, already had a #1 off of it, Same Boat on country radio. And then now I believe next week we have a new single coming out. And so we'll have a new tour, for the summer. I'm just really, really happy that I'm still around, like I think anyone who has not been affected by this in their face, I'm lucky enough to not have lost any loved ones. And I'm just happy to be here, raise my kids, make music, that's pretty much it. This time has made me self-reflect on really what I want life to be, and I was just kind of hanging on to, a train going 500 miles an hour, and we slammed on the brakes. We were on tour when we were in the middle of a tour when basically they shut the whole thing down. I guess it was late February, early March of 2020. And first it was just, we're going to cancel the rest of this tour. All right, we're still doing the shows in the summer. But then we all know that didn't happen. Fast forward a year and a half later, I have a better perspective, personally on life. And honestly, I feel like I make better music now. Like I don't know. I think it's just perspective thing. Like also when I had my first kid, I felt like I got more focused on playing and being able to create faster, not necessarily like fast, like hurried, rushed. I felt like my connection with coming up with parts was better, but I don't know why that my kid would have anything to do with that, but I just feel like I am.
That's cool. Awesome. Well, thanks. And what do you hope that 2022 will bring? Any plans? I mean, providing everything goes well and the COVID situation, eventually becomes an endemic. Um, what plans do you have for 2022?
Well, we have a tour this summer. I would love everything to be calm by then, and everybody to get out and have a good time, and um, continue to make music. I've heard some rumblings that we might be, you know, working on some extra new music for the future, like way down the line. Like, long as people keep writing songs, I'll keep playing them. You know.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for spending this time with us, and it was great having a chat with you about the UAFX pedals. If any of you watching out there are interested in checking out more information about the Universal Audio UAFX pedals, that's the Astra Modulation Machine, the Golden Reverberator, and the Starlight Echo. You can head on over to americanmusical.com, and they're incredible pieces of equipment. They sound amazing, and we can't wait to hear what you do with them, Mr. Clay Cook. So thank you
Awesome.
so much again for being with us today.
No, thank you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Our pleasure.